Welcome back, everyone, to another fun-filled season of FFL347 La Liga presented by VP Marketing Solutions. Tonight we have our draft. We're going to do a quick season preview. 12 teams this year, $300 buy-in, biggest buy-in we have ever had, creating a total prize pool of $3,600. The winner of this league will leapfrog a ton of people in the La Liga career all-time money list, undoubtedly. The payouts have been posted to the group page. There are two different sets of payouts. Of course, we have the Bad Beat Jackpot coming back this year. It's the second time we've had that. Shout out to Joe Gianosa for creating the Bad Beat Jackpot. Cal Steinfeld won both the Bad Beat Jackpot and the league last year, so double whammy for Kyle. So we have that set of payouts, and of course, if no one hits the Bad Beat Jackpot this year, that extra $600 will be added back to the regular price pool. 4 teams will make the playoffs from the 12 teams, the 3 division winners plus 1 wild card. Let's take a quick look at who is in whose division. We have the division with 4 past March Madness champions, including myself, Emilio Diaz, Robert Gonzalez, and our most recent champion, Gerardo Naranjo. Interestingly enough, 2 of the last 3 years, whoever won the March Madness pool went on to win the Fantasy Football League that same year, completing what is now called the Emilio Slam, since Emilio Diaz was the first person to accomplish that. So 3 years ago, Emilio won the March Madness pool, went on to win the Fantasy Football League that fall. Very next year, Jose Moreno wins March Madness, does the exact same thing, wins the Fantasy Football League. The following year, Robert Gonzalez wins the March Madness pool, and he went into the playoffs that year as the number 1 seed in our Fantasy Football League. So we thought 3 years in a row the winner of the March Madness pool was going to win the Fantasy Football League, but of course, Brogo choked in the playoffs, and Kyle Steinfeld won his first Fantasy Football Championship last year. So Gerardo is looking to make it 3 out of the last 4 years where the past March Madness champion wins the Fantasy Football League that same year. Moving on to the second division, the J division, we have 3 guys whose name starts with J: Joseph DeMont, Jose Moreno. Who else is in this? J Mel, or Justin Mel, or just the letter J Mel, and Kyle James, or Kyle Jerk Steinfeld. And then, of course, we have the White Boy division, which features Ryan Glazier, Joe Gianosa, Jason Eliot. They also had 2 people who could have been in the J division. And, of course, Nick Quintana. So, out of all those divisions, we're going to have 1 division winner from each division make the playoffs, and then 1 wild card team will round off the 4 teams in the playoffs. Just like last year, the wild card team will be determined by the best team in any division that didn't win the division based on total amount of points. So if you don't win your division and you have the best record, that does not guarantee you a playoff spot. We go off total points scored for the season. That way you're not screwed over by any flukes or strength of schedule occurrences or anything like that. We truly reward the best team as far as the wild card goes. Of course, you can still get lucky and be put in a really, really weak division and win your division and make the playoffs that way. We've seen that happen before, not that long ago. Actually, myself and both, I think Kyle, in years past, have won our respective divisions with a 6-6 record. So anything can happen. We'll see what happens this year with the increased buy-in going from 125 or 150, whatever it was last year, to 300, more than doubling. We lost a lot of players that have played in the last 3 or 4 years. People like Michel Hunger, Jamison Jones, even past champion Omar Vare, and perennial loser Trevor Kelly, who, of course, the last place trophy is named after him, the Trevor Kelly Memorial Award. We lost a few others like deadbeat loser Dustin Scott Forthune, and 2 or 3 others. So a couple new players in the league this year. There really are no weak links this year. All the people who typically donate, like the Trevor Kellys, they're not playing this year, so we have 12 really strong competitors. I think everyone besides Justin Mel has played in our league before, so I know we have some really, really strong players this year, and I think Justin will be able to keep up. Justin, in fact, was the most feared player earlier today when we had the snake draft between Ryan, Kyle, and I to determine who was going to be in our divisions. Us as the division captains picked who we wanted. He was the last pick, meaning no one wanted him in his division, so Kyle ended up with him. Kyle, of course, is the defending champion. He had the last pick. So no one's played with him. No one wanted to risk it. No one wanted to pick him. So he is going to be, again, the most feared player. You do not win anything for that, unfortunately. Moving on to cover some rules. I know, like I mentioned, we have a couple new players. If you've played with us before, you know we use standard scoring. That means, yes, quarterbacks, if you throw a touchdown, it's worth 6 points, just like it is in real life. In the NFL, if a quarterback has a passing touchdown, it's not 4 points, it's 6 points, just like if he had ran it in, whereas if he had handed it to a running back, touchdown is always 6 points. Everything else is pretty standard. We have, of course, the bad beat jackpot, which may or may not be hit. Sacks are minus 1 point, missed PATs, missed field goals are minus 1 point, but I think that stuff is pretty standard across the board. There is no PPR. This is not Joe's Mickey Mouse League where you get to half a point for a catch. There is no PPR. Okay, and everything else is pretty standard. If you have any questions, just ask. I'm not gonna waste more time in this video going over rules. Again, just ask if you're unclear. Make sure you ask before the draft, which is about an hour from now. Speaking of the draft order will be determined randomly by ESPN exactly 60 minutes prior to the draft. So if I end up with the number 1 pick, just know it's not rigged, it was random. And I don't want the number 1 pick anyways. I don't want to be in that spot. I prefer to be in the 3 or 4 hole. Maybe even 2 or 3 would be fine. Definitely don't want 6, 7, or 8. 11 or 12 is fine too, but if you see me in the 1 hole, you know I didn't rig it because I don't really want that. Or maybe that's what I want you to think. That way when I do rig it, you're like, oh, he didn't want that. This is totally fair. He didn't rig it. Anyways, yeah, feel free to trade draft picks if you don't like where you're seated. So trade your first round pick for someone else's 2nd and 7th round pick or whatever is fair. If you and someone else want to work out a deal for draft picks prior to the trade, that is completely fine. And an important note when it comes to the draft, make sure you test the whatever it's called, the launch cast or whatever the system is that ESPN uses for the draft, because they've updated it, and if you don't have the most recent type of Java installed on your computer, it's not going to work properly, and you have to use the backup system called Draft Lite, which sucks. I had to use it for Joe's Mickey Mouse draft a week ago, and it sucks. You can't add players to your queue. It's just a dumbed down version of the real draft. So make sure you test your system. If you haven't had a draft yet this year, make sure the real draft cast works for you. Okay, guys, that is it. I look forward to a fun season with mild shit talking here and there, a lot of good games, best players like myself coming out on top once again, big payouts, and a lot of good organization. I know that you guys think prior to the draft we were super unorganized, but once the season kicks off, we're by far the best league. We have innovative features. We try new things. When things don't work out, we get rid of them. For example, 1 year we had 16 teams. That was insane. We learned. We didn't do that again. One other year, you had to draft an NFL head coach. So you would have someone like Bill Belichick on your roster, and if he won his game on Sunday, you'd get plus 5 points. Of course, no one liked that, so we got rid of that. Several other ideas we've had, like you had to pay $5 per trade or $5 per picking up a free agent off the waiver wire, things like that we just didn't like. We got rid of. We listen to you. If you have good ideas, we add them, we implement them, we keep them, like the bad beat jackpot, one of the coolest ideas ever. Again, shout out to Joe Gianosa for that. The schedule will be released before tomorrow, but essentially it's a pretty evenly broken down schedule. You'll play everyone in your division, and then your other games will be split out as evenly as possible. And of course, we have another cool feature that we use every year, which is flex scheduling for Week 12. So Week 12 for those new players, let's say there's two teams tied for the division lead. Well, it would suck if one of them had to play the best team in the league, maybe from a different division, and the other person who was tied for the division lead had to play a winless team. It just wouldn't be fair for the division to be determined like that. So we would have those two teams play each other regardless of what the schedule says. We will flex the schedule that last week of the season to create the most intriguing matchups. So another cool feature we do. So anyways, that is it. I will see you guys tonight on the draft. Good luck this year, and if you haven't paid, make sure you pay up.